Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare. Today in the session of class 6 history, we will read and learn about chapter 2, that is from hunting gathering to growing food. Okay, this chapter is divided into two parts. So today in this session we will do part 1. In part 1, we will learn about why people moved from one place to another. How do we know about these people? Next, we will learn that how many types of tools were there and how did they make it. How did they choose a place to live, and we will also study some important sites. How did people find out about fire? What were the different ages in the prehistoric times and how the environment gradually changed. How farming and herding began. These are the pointers we will cover in this lecture. So before getting into the chapter, I would like to question that, do you know that trains were used first for about 150 years ago? If you talk about India में पहली बार ट्रेन जो है वो 1853 में चली थी. Can anyone tell me that what was the route of this train? Let me tell you, it was from Bombay to Thane. The first train ran between Bombay to Thane in India in the year 1853. So basically, this is not a very old practice or very old fact, correct? It's recent, you can say. It's just 150, 160 years ago only. And buses were used after this 1853. We began using buses a few decades later. Second question could be that when people couldn't travel quickly from one place to another, did they spend their entire lives wherever they were born? For example, whenever you read about prehistoric time, you know that vehicles weren't there at that time. Correct? Vehicles started just recently, like 150, 160 years ago. So back in the days, 2.5 million years ago, when there were no vehicles, how did people travel? And if they did not have any vehicles, didn't they move from one place? क्या वो जहां पैदा होते थे वहीं रहते थे? We will find about this later in the chapter. So let's get started. Okay, so the earliest people, why were they on the move? People in the prehistoric time, they kept on moving from one place to another. They kept on shifting from one place to another. Why? We will find this out. But before this, please understand that people who lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago, or you can say 2.5 million years ago, they were known as hunter-gatherers. People who lived in this era in the subcontinent were majorly hunter-gatherers because their main source of food came from hunting. Okay? Their main source of food came from hunting the animals. And they were gatherers. I told you in the last chapter, in the first chapter, that people who lived near the Narmada river, they were majorly gatherers and hunters because they used to gather food from different places and they used to settle near the river. So they were gatherers. They used to gather food by collecting different food items from different places. Alright? Now we'll come to the reason that why would hunter-gatherers move from one place to another? वो एक ही जगह पे क्यों नहीं रहते थे? हमेशा स्विच क्यों करते रहते थे? फर्स्ट रीजन इज, अगर वो एक ही जगह पे रहेंगे, सो द फूड दे हैव एट वन प्लेस विल बी फिनिश्ड वन डे. दैट इज व्हाई दे हैव टू मूव फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर so that they can gather more food. Alright? If they had stayed at one place for a long time, they would have eaten up all the available plant and animal resources. Therefore, they have had to go elsewhere in search of food. Okay. Second reason, because there were hunters, these people were hunters, correct? So they used to hunt animals, and animals used to go from place to place because animals were also hunters. They also used to hunt some other prey. They also used to look for some other food, correct? So wherever animal went, humans or hunters followed those animals. Okay? Animals move from one place to place, either in search of smaller prey or, in the case of deer and wild cattle, in search of grass and leaves. Deer and cattle eat grass and leaves, you know this. So if hunters want to hunt deer, they have to follow the deer wherever deer is going to look for the grass. Correct? That is why those who hunted them had to follow their movement. अगर हंटर को एनिमल खाना है तो हंटर को एनिमल को फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. एनिमल जहां जहां जाएगा हंटर को वहां वहां जाना पड़ेगा. That was the second reason why they moved from place to place. Third reason, plants and trees bear fruit in different season. आपको पता है गुआवा हर सीजन में नहीं आता, पपाया हर सीजन में नहीं आता, मैंगो हर सीजन में नहीं आता. तो जिस ट्री में जब भी फ्रूट्स आते होंगे लोग उस टाइम पर उस ट्री के पास रहते होंगे. जैसे ही फ्रूट्स आना बंद हो जाते होंगे वो लोग दूसरी जगह चले जाते होंगे. Plants and trees bear fruit in different seasons. So people may have moved from season to season in search of different kind of plants. If they want to eat mango, they will settle near the mango tree in summers. But if they want to have guava, then they will settle near the guava trees in winters. Correct? So they've kept on moving from place to place according to seasons also. Reason number 4. People, plants and animals, they all need water to survive. And water is found in lakes, streams, rivers. Now you know that few rivers and lakes are perennial, but few rivers are seasonal. What is perennial? Perennial means water throughout the year. Any river or lake which has water throughout the year is known as perennial river or perennial lake. So if people used to live near the perennial river, then they did not move. But if they lived near the seasonal river, people living on their banks would have had to go in search of water during the dry season. For example, if you live near Luni River, can anyone tell me where is Luni River? If you live near Luni River, which is a seasonal river, it dries out in summers. Okay, so if someone is living near the Luni River, they have to switch to some other river during summer season or during the dry season or during the winter season. Whenever the river will dry, people will have to move in the need of water. This was the another reason why people moved from one place to another. Okay. Now we will understand the second topic of this chapter, that how do we know about these people? What were the sources? We studied in the first chapter that we need sources to study the past. What are the sources which tells us about these people? Because we know that prehistoric times or prehistoric era is that era which does not have any written records. It does not have any written records. Only archaeologists have find out the sources. They have collected the evidence with the help of excavation. They have excavated so many sites. That is why we know about the people of prehistoric times. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any idea about prehistoric time. अगर archaeologist excavation करते ही नहीं, कोई evidence sources लाते ही नहीं, तो हमें prehistoric लोगों के बारे में कभी ना पता चलता. Who are archaeologists? Archaeologist is a person who studies the human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites and the analysis of artifacts and other physical remains. वो artifacts को पढ़ते हैं, excavation के through sites को study करते हैं, और कोई भी चीजें अगर रह गई हैं, if any object is remaining there, if any print is there, if any cloth is there, if any food item is there, whatever is the remain, they study it and they are known as archaeologists. And because of archaeologists only, we know about these people. Now, according to archaeologists, they have find out that it is likely that people made and used tools of stone, wood and bone. But you know that tools of wood and bone might have been destroyed over time because wood and bone is not so strong. Correct? But the tools of stone have survived the best. The tools of wood and bones, only evidence is there, but they do not have any remains of it. But tools of stone is still there. Archaeologists have found some remains of tools of stone. Okay. Now we will read how many types of Stone Age tools are there. Okay. So when we read about the types of Stone Age tools, we have three distinct classes of tools. Okay. Three distinct classes. And these classes represent the different stages of man's progress through time. Please, this is progress, not there's a spelling mistake. So this three distinct classes of tools represents the three different stages of man's progress through time. उन्होंने जब टूल्स बनाना शुरू करा होगा तो एकदम से एक्स तो नहीं बना दिया होगा, एकदम से बड़ी मशीन तो नहीं बना दी होगी. First they must have made or produced very small tool, and later on they must have progressed or made progress in their invention. So the first age tools is early Stone Age tools, second is middle Stone Age tools, and the last is late Stone Age tools. The early Stone Age tools were pebble tools such as chopper, which is basically a chipping part of a pebble to produce a steep cutting edge. After the pebble tool is the hand axe, which is an all-purpose tool, you know, an axe, which is generally a pear-shaped with a continuous working edge on both sides. This is just an explanation of the tool. Third was a cleaver. It's a very wide gisel edge. Okay. These were the early Stone Age tools. Then came the middle Stone Age tools. Borer, arrowhead, scraper. You know, man have made progress from axe to borer. They made a little progress in the type of tool they made. A more sharper tool they made so that their work can get easier. Next progress or next layer of invention was the late Stone Age tools. Now they made very pointy, very scintic blade, very scraper type. Some of these were used for killing fast moving animals also. This stage reflects a specialized and increasingly efficient food collection, leading to the appearance of the beginning of plant cultivation. This is increasingly. Yeah. So with the invention of late Stone Age tools, a plant cultivation era also started because now they had very efficient and very pointy tools with the help of which cultivation can be done easily. Okay. So these are the stages, or you can say the different types of Stone Age tools. Here you can see some stone tools which were used. Tools were also used for digging the ground to collect the edible roots, for stitching clothes made out of animal skin. There were other uses of stone tools as well. For example, tools were used to cut meat and bone, scrape the bark from trees and hides the animal skin, to chop fruit and to chop roots. Some also used the stone tools to handle of bone or wood to make spears, arrow for hunting. You can see all these pictures, correct? Stone were used for all these purposes. To chop wood, which was used as firewood, then wood was also used to make huts and tools. Okay, so these were the basic uses of stone tools. Now we'll read the next heading of the chapter, that how did they choose a place to live in? Now you know that many sites were located near the sources of water such as river and lakes. We have read this in earlier chapter also, that people majorly lived near the bank of river or a lake. As stone tools were important, people tried to find places where good quality stone was also easily available. Now you know that people needed water, so they lived near river. People needed food, so they hunted and gathered the food. Correct? Now they also need tools so that they can live easily, so that they can hunt easily, so that they can cultivate the food crop easily. So now they need good quality stone also, so that they can make good tools to survive easily. Okay? As per the availabilities of these products, wherever they found all these products, for example, if they found a place where they have good quality stone, where they have river, where they have animals also, where they have trees also, so that they can eat fruit, they have land also where they can cultivate, so they will live near that place only. For example, अगर आप खुद को सोचो, आप कैसी जगह पे रहना पसंद करोगे? जहां बिल्कुल ड्राई पड़ा हो, जहां कोई पेड़ ना हो, कोई एनिमल ना हो, कोई स्टोन ना हो, ऐसी जगह पे तो आप नहीं रहोगे ना। आप कहाँ रहोगे? जहां पे पानी भी आ रहा हो, जहां पे एनिमल भी हो ताकि आप उसे हंट कर सको, जहां पे फ्रूट्स भी हो और जहां पर स्टोन्स भी मिल सके जिसके आप टूल्स बना सको। करेक्ट? अकॉर्डिंग टू दीज availabilities, according to the availability and accessibility of these things, people chose a place to live. Here is a map of some important archaeological sites which are provided by archaeologists. You can see all these blue marks. These blue marks are Neolithic sites. These red marks, Bhimbetka, Hunski, Kurnool. All these red markers are Paleolithic sites. Blue markers are Neolithic sites. And green markers. You can see green marker also, Brahmagiri, Adachamallur. All these are megalithic sites. You can see the purple signs, Inamgaon. These are early village. And you can see the stars also, Kolkata, Mumbai. These are modern cities. Now you will be wondering what is this Paleolithic, Neolithic, Megalithic. We'll learn about this later, don't worry. Another example here is about the Bhimbetka caves. Bhimbetka is a cave which is in Madhya Pradesh presently. This is an old site with caves and rock shelters. People chose these natural caves because they provided shelter. See, you see this cave. If you live inside it, you will be protected from harsh sunlight, from heavy rain, from animal attack, from pests, from insects, everything, correct? So these caves provided a kind of shelter to people. These caves provided shelter from the rain, heat and wind. These rock shelters are very close to the Narmada Valley. Okay, you know Narmada Valley, very near to Madhya Pradesh in the Gujarat region. Next example is about a rock painting. And what does rock painting tell us? Rock painting is basically a rock which has a painting on it. This is an example of it. Many of the caves in which these early people lived have paintings on the walls. जब हम prehistoric time के बारे में पढ़ते हैं, in that period archaeologists have also provided us with the evidence of paintings on the walls. Some of the best example you can see in Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. There are various sites in Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh where rock paintings are there, where caves are there, and on the walls of the caves, painting have been done in the prehistoric time by the people in the prehistoric time. Okay. Now, I've been telling you about all the sites and all that map where it had Neolithic, Mesolithic, megalithic sites. What do you mean by sites? What is the meaning of sites? Sites are basically places where the remains of things were found. Okay. These things were made, used and left behind by people. These may be found on the surface of the earth, buried under the earth or sometimes even under the water. जरूरी नहीं है हमेशा सारी साइट्स जो हैं वो आपको एकदम लैंड के ऊपर सजी हुई मिलेंगी. It's not important that they'll be in a very flourished form of a building. It's not important. Sometimes archaeologists have to excavate it under the ground. Sometimes they have to excavate the earth of the ground and then they found about various cities, various buildings, various civilizations and sites. Okay. Sometimes some sites are also underwater. For example, if you can imagine, कोई एक जगह है prehistoric time में जहां सब लोग रहते थे and then floods came. And floods came over such place recurrently. बार बार वहां floods आते रहे. So over a period of time, this place will be submerged under water. Correct? एक टाइम आएगा जब ये पूरी जगह पानी के अंदर होगी. So sometimes archaeologists also find some sites which are underwater. Okay, this could also be one of the probabilities. Please understand this. Okay. Now, finally, we can understand about that. How did they find out about the fire? What were the use of fire? How did they find out about this? With the help of Kurnool caves. Okay, you see this Kurnool caves in the zoomed out version. ये जो Kurnool caves है ना, यहाँ पे ash के traces मिले थे. Traces of ash were found near the Kurnool caves. Archaeologists tells us that there were traces of ash, so we can know by this that people might have burnt some wood or some paper in these area, and that is why they knew about fire, correct? Now coming on to the most important topic in the chapter, different ages in the prehistoric time. Please understand what is prehistoric. Prehistoric is that time of the history which do not have written records. No written records available. I told you this earlier also. No written records available. That period of history which archaeologists have found out themselves only. They have done excavations, they have done research, and because of that only we have evidence. We do not have any written records of history. Such period of history is known as prehistoric times. Okay. Now, whenever we study history, whenever we study the prehistoric time, we divide the ages. We divide the ages in timeline in 3 stages. First stage is the Stone Age, second is the Bronze Age, and the last is the Iron Age. In this chapter, we will read about the Stone Age. Okay. Now, the Stone Age is also divided in 3 categories. The timeline of Stone Age is also divided into 3 categories. First category is the Paleolithic period, second is the Mesolithic period, and last is the Neolithic period. Paleolithic period is also known as the Old Stone Age, Mesolithic is known as the Middle Stone Age, and Neolithic is known as the New Stone Age. Okay. Paleolithic is the oldest one. It is nearly 2.5 million years ago from the present time. Mesolithic is 15,000 years ago from the present time. And Neolithic is nearly 11,000 years ago from the present time. So, in the category of Stone Age, Neolithic is the most latest one. Okay. In the Paleolithic age, human used stones for hunting. Okay. In the Mesolithic age, people started sharpening their tools. Sharpening their tools for better hunting, for better gathering, for better cultivation. And in the Neolithic, or you can say the New Stone Age, they basically learned more about the hunting and they learned about agriculture. They learned about the food crops and the use of animals in the cultivation. Okay. They learned about how to produce grains, how to produce foods. They started learning about planting, seeds, and all the crops and farming. Okay. So these are the 3 stages, or you can say stone ages of the Stone Age era of the prehistoric times. Archaeologists have given lengthy names for the time that we are studying. They call the earliest period as the Paleolithic. Paleolithic period extends from 2 million years ago to 12,000 years ago. The period when we find some environmental changes, that means when stone tools were still there, but they started sharpening those tools, they started shifting more towards hunting and started learning very slightly about the cultivation. This changing period is known as the Mesolithic or Middle Stone Age period, which lies nearly between 12,000 to 10,000 years ago. Okay. The next stage is 10,000 years ago, which is the Neolithic, when people learnt about the new ideas, when people learnt about agriculture, when people learnt about cultivation, when people learnt how we can use animal in the crop, in the field, how we can grow seeds, how we can grow fruits, and all these new ideas. Okay. And so you must be wondering that why am I saying 10,000 years ago or maybe 12,000 years ago? Because this is the BC period, or you can say BCE period. I told you in the first chapter that BC is that period of history which was before the birth of Christ, and AD was the period, or you can say in the modern term we use CE. AD is the period, or CE is the period which is after the birth of Christ. Correct? In the period of BC, whenever we write about BC, whenever we study about BC, we go in reverse order. So if you remember this slide in which we read that in the BC AD or BCC period, in the BC period, time goes in reverse. Okay. In the AD period, or you can say CE period, CE and AD means one thing only. In the CE period, time goes in order, one after the other. After 500 comes 1000, and after 1000 comes 1500. But in the BC period, or you can say BCE period, time goes in reverse. First comes 1500, then comes 1000, then comes 500. Why? Because we are going in reverse order. 500 years ago, 1000 years ago, 1500 years ago, from the common point. Okay, that is why BC is studied in reverse order, because we are going back from the date of the birth of Jesus Christ. But in the AD period, in the CE period, we are going forward from the birth of Jesus Christ, from the common point, from the centric point. We are going forward. But in the BC period, we are going backward from the common point. Okay. Now we'll read how the environment changed over time. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world. Climate started changing with a shift to relatively warm condition. Because human activities were increasing, and that is why the climate started turning warm. In many areas, this led to the development of grasslands. Because the temperature was rising, it was ideal condition for the grasslands to grow. Okay. This in turn led to an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, because they eat grass. And wherever grass will grow, these animals will come naturally. Those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding season. You know that hunter follow the animal. An animal like deer, antelope, goat, sheep and cattle, they need grass. So wherever these animals will go, these hunters will also follow these animals and they will hunt them. They will learn about their food habits and their breeding season also. So wherever the deer will breed, hunters will go on that place only. It is likely that this helped people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. Hunters को ये लगा that why are we following these animals? Why don't we rear them? हम खुद ही पाल लेते हैं. Let's rear them. Let's cut them, eat them or sell them in the market. ये भी तो कर सकते हैं. This could be a business idea that let's rear these animals. Let's rear the cattle and use the milk from it. Let's sell the milk from it and earn a profit. Correct? So with this, the idea of herding and rearing began. Fishing also became very important because people living near the sea, they learned that fishes are there. So if we hunt these fishes, we can easily eat it and we can sell these fishes also so that we can get other products in exchange. With this began farming and herding as a permanent activity between people in the prehistoric time. Men, women, children probably collected the grains as food and they learned where they grew and when they ripened. इन्हें धीरे धीरे ये समझ में आया that what land can be used for growing the grains. When did the grain ripen so that we can cut it and use those grains to eat food. In this way, people became farmers. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of the dog. Let me tell you, the first animal people reared in the prehistoric time was a dog. It belonged to the family of dog, wild ancestor of dog. People encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camp where they lived. People only encouraged those animals which were gentle, which were very easy to stay with you. If any animal will be wild, not understandable, not gentle, not easy, why will people encourage them to be a pet with them? That is why people tamed dog on the first hand, because dogs are gentle, they are easy to be kept along. Often people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals also. This is how they became herders. ये herders कैसे बने होंगे? ये farmers तो बन गए because now they know that how grains can be grown, when did the grains ripen, how can we use these grains to eat food. But how did they become herders? They became herders because they protected these animals these tamed animals from the attack of wild animals. They protected these animals from wild animals, and this is how they became herders also. Now my question is, can you think of any reason that why dog was perhaps the first animal to be tamed? Dog first animal कैसे हो सकता है tame करने के लिए? Answer is very easy. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of dog, because dog is smaller. The animal is small in size and you can keep that animal as a pet very easily in your house. The dog is smaller in size and could be easily kept. Also, it's an intelligent animal when it is compared with other animals like goat, sheep and pig. Dog is intelligent because it has some senses to sense some danger, to tell you that something is not going right, to tell you about the threat. Correct? It can protect you, be loyal to the house and all that. Because of these qualities of a dog, maybe people in the prehistoric times tamed the dog as a pet animal. Okay. Now we'll read about domestication, because now we know that people were herders. So now they started domesticating the animals. But before this, we will learn what is domestication. Domestication is the name given to the process in which people grow plants and look after the animals. It's a process where they look after the animals also, and they grow crops also. They grow plants also. They're doing both the activities together. For example, they select those plants and animals that are not prone to disease. Amongst animals, those that are relatively gentle are selected for breeding. Any animal which were gentle to breed, in the prehistoric time, people breeded such animals only which were gentle, and they reared those animals which were not prone to diseases. For example, if you grow any plant and your animal does not like it, so can you keep that animal and that plant together? No, you cannot keep it, because the animal might be prone to some disease because of that plant. But if you grow a plant which is healthy for the animal, then obviously you can keep these things together. You can grow this plant also and you can keep the animal also. So people usually kept those plants and animals which were not prone to diseases and which were relatively gentle for breeding. This is domestication. With this, we come to the end of chapter 2, part 1, and we'll see you in the next part. Thank you.